And we're going to shift to our last theme of the prepared questions, and it relates to economic participation. Mr. Love, you're first up with the first question. A growing Saskatchewan economy can create generational opportunity. It also creates a huge demand for skilled labor, services, and capacity building in communities that traditionally have had lower rates of economic inclusion and participation. And this opportunity is particularly evident in the context of economic reconciliation with Saskatchewan's Indigenous communities. Mr. Love, what specific action plans does your party have to increase the inclusion and participation of such communities, and thereby increase the economic opportunity that's available to all Saskatchewan residents?
Yeah, you folks have come up with some excellent questions today, and I have some special appreciation for this question because it comes at a time in our province, in our country, when we're asking questions about what truth and reconciliation means. The Saskatchewan NDP absolutely believes that that includes economic reconciliation. We need to ensure full participation of Indigenous people in Saskatchewan in our economy to ensure that our economy is growing and that we have folks able to meet the needs in our workforce. And this really starts with education. Education is the key. We know in Saskatchewan, on-time graduation rates for First Nations and Métis kids are far less than everyone else. It's a difference of 62% versus 93%. So we're failing young Indigenous students in this province, and that's where it's going to start, where we will start to provide some solutions. Now, half of our First Nations students, primary students, live off reserve in this province, and nearly all of our Métis students are going to provincially funded schools. So we have a plan to invest $2 billion into our education system. And if that sounds like a lot of money, it is. And that's how much we've seen cut on a per student basis during Scott Moe's time as Premier. And our schools are feeling those cuts. This investment is going to set up First Nations and Métis students for success at school and beyond, so they can pursue their goals and their dreams in post-secondary learning or entering the workforce. If we can get more young Indigenous kids succeeding in the K-12 system, we're going to unlock that untapped part of our workforce and our economy to see real growth in Saskatchewan and real success and real economic reconciliation in our province.
Mr. Harrison, 1 minute for reply.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the question. This is something that has been a deep commitment of mine, coming from Northwest Saskatchewan with a very significant Indigenous population and seeing economic success on the part of that Indigenous population in the Northwest. And one thing I'm going to point to, it hasn't got a lot of attention publicly, but it deserves to, which is the Indigenous Investment Finance Corporation, which this government brought forward a number of years ago now with the intention of providing loan guarantees so that Indigenous governments and businesses could take direct equity stakes in operations, whether it be forestry, whether it be energy, whether it be power generation. Started with $75 million. We've added another $100 million to that program already. That program is going to continue to grow as well, I can tell you. Education is a part of the answer, but providing the tools for Indigenous businesses and governments to directly participate is going to be a big part of this answer. And I point to the forestry sector in the northwest part of this province, a great announcement in PA, really facilitated in part by this program, which is going to provide great benefits for Indigenous people.
And Mr. Love, the remaining 30 seconds.
Well, I'm hearing some agreement that education is a key. But that needs to be early years. It needs to be the kind of supports that Indigenous students need to succeed at school. In my experience as a teacher, right here in Saskatoon, I saw those supports that my students needed and my Indigenous students needed. I saw them cut year after year after year. It's one of the reasons I decided to go into politics. That's the track record of the Sask Party government. In the last 10 years, we've gone from first in the country to dead last in how we fund our schools.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next question is for Jeremy Harrison. The participation of women in Saskatchewan's workforce is crucial to growth. However, many women continue to face barriers to re-entry after having children. Access to affordable childcare is one of the biggest challenges. High childcare costs, as well as the access to spots, is disproportionately affecting women, forcing some to delay or forego their return to work. What is the Sask Party committed to doing to reduce those barriers and ensure that women are full participants in the Saskatchewan economy?
Right. No, I really appreciate the question, and I know firsthand from when I had children, my wife had children. I was there, but my wife obviously had the children, and the return to work is a challenge, and it really is. And it's finding quality childcare is a genuine challenge for those seeking to re-enter the labor market, and that's why we cooperated very closely with the Government of Canada on their childcare initiative. One of the very first provinces to become a party to that agreement. There are going to be continued work is going to be done in making sure that the resources dedicated are going to be allocated such that those who are seeking to return to the labor force can do so. But it's also, highlights, I think, what is a significant issue within the Saskatchewan economy, which is really that we have a labor shortage here in this province. I hear over and over again from companies, large and small, that the number one impediment to their future growth trajectory is really around making sure they have access to the labor that they need to fill those jobs that are being created. And that's why we move forward with the labor market strategy. It was a three-pillar approach, including making sure that underrepresented groups are fully represented in the labor market. So that would be Indigenous, disabled, those who are seeking to return to the labor force after having children. We really have put a significant focus on that, in addition to making sure that we have in place training spots, whether it be through SaskPoly, whether it be through our regional colleges, whether it be at our post-secondary institutions for Saskatchewan young people, and not just young people, to take advantage of the opportunities being created by our growing economy. Also for newcomers, to make sure that their skills are recognized. Again, something I wish I had more time to really get into in depth. I'm passionate about this. Making sure that qualifications obtained from outside of Saskatchewan, outside of the country, are recognized here in Saskatchewan. We've set up the very first in the country credential recognition service, working as a concierge with newcomers. And a part of the equation as well is working with companies to make sure they have access to labor from outside of Saskatchewan if they need to access that, so that their growth can continue.
Thank you. Mr. Lev, you have 1 minute to respond.
Yeah, I want to just start again by expressing my appreciation for this great question. It's something that I certainly hear a lot about in my constituency in Saskatoon Eastview, and I'm not sure what the situation is in Meadow Lake, where Mr. Harrison is from, but women here are struggling to find childcare, struggling to find affordable, typically licensed childcare. Despite the agreement made with the federal government, the Sask Party hasn't delivered on their promises here. They made some big promises about how many childcare spaces they'd be opening up, and those are promises made and promises broken. Women in my community, in Eastview, right here in Saskatoon, struggle to find affordable, licensed care for their kids so they can re-enter the workforce. It's a big barrier, and your question hits the nail on the head. So my question for my opponent here tonight is, what does it say to your commitment to women and their place in the workforce when you have failed to follow through on the commitments that you've made?
30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and obviously we're working to make sure that we have quality childcare in place, and it's going to be a continuing commitment from this government because of the fact that it's an important thing to do. What's important to highlight as well, which I had mentioned, the biggest challenge we have in this province right now is making sure that we have the folks to fill the jobs that are being created by the economy, which is really how you pay for all of these other things. The budget has increased from $7 billion to nearly 20. That didn't just happen. The NDP thinks it just happens. It doesn't happen. It's because you're committed to growing the economy, and that's what our focus will be.